Hi there, friends. Welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on UNASA TV. Today I'm going to talk a little more about vandalism on farms because it's something that I've continued to see again and again and again, and it seems to be increasing over the years. Maybe it's just because I've been following it more often than I used to, but there are some farms in South Carolina that I wanted to talk about today. Last week, if you watched this channel, you heard me interview a young couple in their 20s, late 20s, who started a farm during COVID, and they were recently vandalized. Somebody had gone through and cut all of their hay bales. As it turned out, or what they know so far, is somebody paid the vandals to go out and cut the hay. They know that because they offered a reward, and the crooks that do this stuff aren't very intelligent, went and turned themselves in for the reward money. But they're after, whoever paid them. And a lot of times, it could be somebody in the community, it could be somebody who has a grudge against you or your business, and that certainly could always be the case. But sometimes it's done by monkey wrenching groups or done by a lone activist who's acting on their own accord because they think that they can do more faster. The state of Oregon this year had some massive fires in the Cow Valley. We know that those fires were intentionally started because of how many fires there were along a rural road and on either side of a major highway. And the thing about that is they probably knew that by starting those fires, they'd be completely disrupting the cattle industry in the state of Oregon. And that's because BLM has changed how it manages its lands in that particular area. A lot of it will go to conservation as soon as they determine that the land needs to be put to rest or should not be grazed. Well, when you set it on fire, suddenly that process speeds up. So I think that whoever did those fires knew exactly what they were doing, knew exactly what the implications were. It's just like the people who cut the hay bales. They knew exactly what the implications were by cutting the hay bales at the time they cut them, where they cut them, how they cut them, and what it would mean to the farmer over the winter. If anything, they were probably hoping that the farmer wouldn't have noticed until the winter, at which time, what's the farmer going to do? Luckily, they noticed it and were able to have enough time to try and correct the situation. And a lot of times, insurance will cover some people for their losses, but like in those farmer situations, that was a perfect example. It's easy math to do. There's $7,500 worth of losses from that hay being cut. They got about $2,800 from the insurance company. So these types of activities do have a significant impact on our farmers. And it is basically agro-terrorism. And it's not just that, it's an attack on our nation's food supply. When you attack farmers, you are attacking our nation's food supply. Now, you guys know from watching this channel that I support small farmers. Those were small farmers in Vermont, by the way, that were attacked. But I also will often talk about larger farmers because I'm not a dumb person. I recognize that there are 8 billion people in this world and we have to feed all of those mouths. And until we can even make it more economical for more small farmers to start up and provide food to their local communities, we still are relying on those large farmers. And when we attack those large farmers, we try and shut them down. We are increasing the price of food in the United States. We are increasing food insecurity across the country and around the world, really, because we're not just supplying food to our country, we supply food around the world. And right now, that is a very volatile system. It's a very volatile system because of what we've seen going on in Ukraine. It's a very volatile system because of what we've seen going on here in the U.S. with droughts. I'm going to do a different video on this, but droughts have impacted crops across the United States this year. It's a volatile system because we're at the lowest cattle herd that we've had, so our meat supply is very low. Another prime example of, targeted and intentional monkey wrenching of ranchers and farms are the cattle mutilations that we continue to see out west. There's always, every couple of years there's an article coming out and then you find out that it's been going on the entire time. It has never really stopped since the 1970s, but these people will go out and they'll mutilate ranchers' cows. And if you look at who they mutilate, they go after the bulls. Why do they go after the bulls? Well, the bulls could be the most expensive cows on the property. It's where the genetics are coming from, right? So farmers and ranchers will pay $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 for the right bull to grow their herd. Well, if you go in and you mutilate that bull and you kill that bull, you substantially hurt the farmer. They don't go after all the other cows, they go after the bull. Why? Because it's intentional monkey wrenching. Now in South Carolina, this story I found interesting because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from the criminal standpoint. And granted, I don't think like a criminal. I mean, maybe these people are such low lives that they don't think of themselves worth very much time at all, or they don't think of their time as being worth much at all. I mean, maybe that is the case. But even then, I still feel like it's not really worth the effort. Like I feel like you would make more money begging off the street than you would doing what they're doing. But basically, these criminals have been going into South Carolina farms. Most of these farms are in Lexington County, just around the North Fork of the Edisto River. And what they're doing is they're going up onto their irrigation equipment. These irrigation lines, they're big. They're not like they are out west in the Midwest or in other parts of our country. They're probably, from what I could tell from looking online and judging from the measurements, some of these are between 500 to 700 feet in length. And they're cutting off irrigation electrical control lines. So they're cutting off these lines. These lines are probably like 1810, 1812. So they've got a lot of smaller copper wires inside of them. But just, thinking about how much they weigh. Okay, so when you take wires in to have them recycled, you're getting paid by the pound. So 1,000 feet of 1812, or, that would be, what, 88 pounds? So if you figured some of these are at, and some of them might just be 1810, whatever, but they're cutting them at about 400 or 500 feet, and they have to crawl along the irrigation equipment to cut these lines off, because some of these farmers have gotten to the point where they're putting on extra zip ties, whatever they can do to make it not worth somebody's time to go down and cut these wires down. But they're still doing it, right? They're still going in, they're cutting them, they're taking them off. However much time it takes, they're putting the effort in to cut these wires off. And then, supposedly they're recycling them. I mean, I valued them somewhere between $56 to $75, on a recycled value per pivot, or whatever the irrigation equipment is. So they're cutting these wires off, and supposedly they're recycling them. Now, the Lexington County Sheriff's Office has not been able to really get any good leads on this. If you have any leads on it, you can feel free to call them. I'll put their number down below. They haven't really had any good leads on it without any eyewitnesses. They don't know who's actually doing it. But it seems like if you're cutting that much wire, right? So you're getting 500-600 feet of wire. Some say they're melting it down and getting the copper out. It wouldn't surprise me if they were just taking the wire straight into the recycling. But they're taking it in and supposedly getting, a small amount of cash for that wire to, I don't know, feed a drug habit. Whatever these lowlifes do is what they've been trying to do with it. Maybe they're really trying to feed their family. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to attack a farmer to feed your family. My point is, they're cutting these wires off, and it happens every fall. Okay, this is where it starts to get a little fishy, right? It happens every fall to numerous farmers within the county, and they think maybe within, a wider area. I think this is happening along that North Fork of the Edisto River. So it seems odd to me. Like I said, I don't think like a criminal. I don't know how these guys think, but I don't think it would be worth the amount of effort and time. There are much easier things to do to get money, much easier things to steal, if I am going to be a criminal, than to crawl along these long pieces of irrigation equipment, 400, 500, 600 feet in length, cutting off all the wire. I mean, let's be real. But it has cost the farmers $20,000 so far in wire. Just one farmer. Now, he has about 1,000 acres. He has a lot of irrigation equipment, but it's cost him over $20,000. In fact, he's been doing this, Mr. Gunter's been doing this for years, and he told the news that he was about to give up.
Farming is my passion. I wouldn't work this hard for nobody. But it's getting to the point that I've told my son I'm ready to quit. So, but, it's aggravating.
As a farmer, he wants to give up because he's so tired of having to rerun wires on his equipment, and I don't blame him. I mean, that's a lot of work and effort that those farmers have to go through to put that wire up. It's a lot of work and effort that a thief has to go through to take those wires down.
They've took them off of at least 5 different pivots. So, and they've hit them over and over. So this is not the first time that we've been hit. So they know which ones they can get to, and they always do it where it's close to a road.
So it doesn't necessarily make sense to me, but like I said, I don't think like a criminal, and it could just very well be somebody who thinks every fall I'm going to go out and I'm going to steal all the wires off of the irrigation equipment so I can make a few extra bucks from my, I don't know what they do with the money, whatever it is that they want to do with the money, right? But to me, this sounds more like a monkey wrenching campaign. The Edisto River runs down to Edisto Island. Edisto Island has been a center of, I wouldn't say controversy or conflict. It's been a center of attention because of the amount of water pollution that comes in and around Edisto Island. You can't harvest mussels in the area. It's kind of a mess, actually. And I'm somebody who is 100% for clean water and doing what we can to clean up our water supply. But you have to look at it from a standpoint of, the water's coming in there polluted because it's running through cities, it's running through a lot of different things before it gets down there. And it's not, the pollution isn't all coming from water. But there is also the argument that they're taking too much water out of the river to water crops, okay? In fact, last January, around January 24th, there was an article that was talking about how the Southern Environmental Law Group was threatening to sue the state of South Carolina's agricultural department for not doing more to protect its waterways, specifically when it came to agriculture pumping too much water out of the waterways. So there is activism around this thing, and activism isn't always bad. And one of my favorite interviews with our documentary film was a bison rancher talking about animal activists and how you have to have those checks and balances, right? The activists keep, the bison ranchers constantly trying to improve what they're doing with the animals, constantly trying to improve their animal husbandry practices because they recognize that people are out there, people care, and they want to show them that they're doing the best they possibly can. And because they constantly have that pressure to do so, they're constantly improving, and I agree with that statement. But and I think that in most cases, and from what I've seen as far as the immediate groups who have been involved with protecting the Edisto Water District, a lot of them are pretty legit. I don't think that they would necessarily hire monkey wrenchers and go out and do this stuff. But I've also noticed another thing when it comes to a lot of these projects. They end up getting a lot of funding from other groups around the country. Sometimes, I've seen, this is going on right now, okay? So you have, out in California, you have a factory farm group trying to stop factory farming in Sonoma County. So that's a political action group that's taking political action in a specific state, in a specific county of a state. But they are donating money and supporting a political action group in Colorado. I don't know where they get the money to donate to the Colorado group, since the money donated to them is supposed to be going to their California campaign, but they do it anyway, right? And these groups, you start seeing cross-funding. But really what it is it's a reallocation of resources, because all of these groups, if you follow them up the funding chain too far, what you'll find is that they all end up going into the same umbrella foundation. A lot of them do, or foundations. Don't want to get too specific on that. And then when you follow that trail far enough, what you'll see is that they also, these foundations, end up funneling money into groups that are environmental monkey wrenching groups that would go out, cut off oil lines, groups that would go out, mutilate a cow, and they so you see this funding kind of weaseling its way through in a lot of cases. And I haven't really found that in the South Carolina situation, but I haven't really done that much digging into financial records to see, who's doing what. Like I said, I don't think that the environmental groups protecting this particular river have anything to do with it. But I do see how when there are these actions and these campaigns, you do end up having these activist groups that are well-funded come in and take advantage of things. And just like the people in Vermont who found out that the people who actually did the damage were paid, I think what you might find out in South Carolina is that the people actually taking the wires are being paid to take the wires. Now it makes a whole lot more sense, right? If you're getting paid to take the wires, well, it's worth it. And then if you can keep the wires, it's even more worth it.
The farmers explained it to me. After someone climbs up and takes the wire, in order to sell the copper, they need to get rid of all the plastic and materials surrounding it. But each wire has 10 smaller wires inside.
And by the time it's burned, it's probably not worth anything, just a bigger wire.
They're either the Lexington County Sheriff's Department is incompetent and hasn't talked to, you know, the recycling centers about who's bringing in the wire, and I don't think that that's the case. I think that they're pretty confident. I'm pretty competent. I think they've looked into it, or these people are trucking the wires off after they take them down, which increases their chances of getting caught, and then taking it to a facility somewhere else. There's really no telling, but it seems to me that much wire would be a hard thing to brush off, especially for a recycling center. They'd have to notice it. And I think that for the integrity of the business, a lot of the recycling centers would probably take note of that or report it. But like I said, if you're getting paid just to take the wires down, it makes everything worth it, right? Because you might be getting paid more than the wire's worth. And I don't know that that's actually happening, but I feel like with these situations, the amount of how often they're occurring and how well they're orchestrated, and in this case, the fact that it happens at the same time every year, I mean, was there a convention somewhere? Tells me that these people are a little more coordinated than just your average criminal. You know, their motives might be different than your average criminal. And there are other motives out there for causing harm to these farms. Anyway, guys, something to think about. I've got several other subjects that I am working on, and I'll get those videos out to you later this week. Until then, remember to defend the right to farm and support this channel by shopping at Yanasa Trading Co.